Hey guys, it's Amelia here. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a two-part video. The first part I'm going to show you some slides on the canter, and the second part I'm going to demonstrate you a little bit about how to move your body and stay with the motion of the horse in the canter. I know that a lot of you guys struggle with the canter. You're pretty confident about the walk and the trot. But when it comes time to canter, things can get exciting, right? The horse can take off, or that transition into the canter can be a little tricky. And we all have a little bit of fear of cantering, especially if it is a new horse that you haven't cantered before, or maybe you've never cantered. So give me a thumbs up and comment below if you are struggling with your canter, because I guarantee you, you are not alone. Okay, so let's get started with the slides. So the first slide is about fear and the canter. Again, like I said, we all have a little fear of cantering. I even have fear of cantering, not of the horses that I ride all the time, but when I go to Europe and try young horses that I don't know, it's always a little scary when you first ask for that canter transition. So my tips for managing fear in the canter. Tip one is break it down and set it up for success. So don't overface yourself and your horse. Really make sure that you have your ducks in a row at the trot, that you can trot really forward, and that your horse is on the bit, and that you're relaxed and good at the trot before you try the canter. Tip number two is trot faster. So work on getting where you can trot almost as fast as the canter. I see a lot of riders that they're doing this like really tiny little pony trot, and then all of a sudden they want to canter, and it's such an increase in speed all of a sudden that can be really scary for the rider and also for the horse. So work on trotting almost as fast as possible without cantering. Tip number three is breathe. So a lot of us hold our breath when it's time to canter. So really work on, I always remember to take a big deep inhale and then exhale it all the way out. And as you're exhaling, that's when you are gonna ask for the canter. So this just helps you relax, helps you lower your center of gravity as you ask for the canter. And your horse will also really pick up on your breathing as a sign that you are in control and staying relaxed. Tip number four is visualize. So practice imagining the feeling of the canter, imagining what it's going to feel like in your body, imagining how your horse is going to nice and softly transition into the canter. Imagine the preparation that you need for the canter, and all of this will help you. And then my last tip is to get help. So if your horse gets nervous or tense when cantering, and you also get nervous or tense, that's a time when you need to seek a trainer and get some professional help. Get someone that's not afraid of cantering to canter your horse. And this will give your horse confidence, and it will also give you confidence. If you see someone else that's able to safely canter your horse and keep your horse relaxed, it gives you confidence that you can do the same. Okay, next slide is about the aids for the canter. So everyone's aid for the canter is just a little bit different, and every horse's aid is just a little bit different. And that's why picking up the canter can be really tricky, because in the canter transition, your horse goes from a 2-beat trot into a 3-beat canter. So in general, the universal aid for canter is inside leg at the girth, inside seat bone, and outside leg behind the girth. And the amount of pressure that you need in each of your legs is really dependent on the rider and how your horse has been trained. Some horses respond more from the inside leg for the canter, and some respond more from the outside leg behind the girth. But in general, it's always outside leg back and inside leg at the girth. How much of a half halt and how much pressure in each leg depends on the horse. So comment below, let me know if your horse needs more inside leg or outside leg. I'm curious to know. I usually use a little bit more pressure in my outside leg, But your inside leg is really important in the transition because your inside leg keeps the horse going straight forward. If you just use outside leg, your horse is going to swing their butt in, and you don't want that. It's also really important when you're riding, and I'm going to talk about this later on, that you influence your horse in the upstride of the canter. So once you've picked up the canter, you'll see that the mane will fly up as you're cantering along. When the mane is flying up, the outside hind leg is on the ground. So when you half halt or anything that you do in the canter, if you want to go bigger or if you want to bring your horse back, you want to time your half halts for that phase when the mane is flying up. Next slide is common mistakes, and I have a lot of videos on this, so check out below. I will link the other videos that I have on the canter to help you guys. But some of the most common mistakes that I see are hands up and leaning forward. So people are going around and they have a beautiful position, but when it comes time for the canter, all of a sudden they lean forward and pull on the reins. The other thing that I see a lot is people gripping with their knees. And when you grip with your knees and tighten your inner thighs, this is going to cause you to tip forward. It's also going to make it really difficult for you to follow the motion with your seat and your back, because when you grip with your legs, it tightens up your seat. And it's also going to cause you to lose your stirrups. So it's really important in the canter that your knees should be in the saddle. They shouldn't be flopping, but you don't want to grip on with your inner thigh, because that's going to tip you forward and make your butt kind of bounce in the saddle instead of swishing from the back to the front of the saddle. And I'll talk about this when I'm riding later on in the video. The next common mistake is not following the motion of the canter. So we talked about this already, but the saddle kind of goes in a swishing motion, and as you're cantering, your hip angle needs to close and open, and your butt kind of swishes from the back to the front of the saddle to follow the arc of the horse's back. It's kind of like if you've ever ridden a sawhorse or one of those like toy horses at the carnival. It's kind of that motion. So it's a swishing up and down motion, and you have to have suppleness and be movable in your lower back and also in your hips in order to follow the motion of the canter and not be slapping in the saddle. And then the last common mistake is horses that take the incorrect lead. So if your horse isn't straight and symmetrical, they'll prefer one lead over the other. And in general, if your horse takes the incorrect lead, you need to go back and work on the preparation. If they take the incorrect lead, it's because they're not properly bending on the circle line before you ask for the canter. Okay, so the canter transition. The canter transition, like I mentioned before, everyone's aids are a little bit different. But I have a few exercises that help with the canter transition. So one is the snowman exercise, and again, I'll link that below. Exercise number 2 is leg yield into canter. So setting up the canter transition with a little bit of a leg yield to get your horse off of the inside leg and into the outside rein can be very helpful. And then the third exercise I like is where you go walk, trot, canter. So just a lot of walk, trot transitions before you ask your horse to canter will help, especially if you have a horse that's a little bit lazy. So let's get to the riding, and again, check out the description below. I will link all those other videos to help you with your canter, and I really hope this helps you guys get out there and start cantering. All right, happy riding. Thanks so much for watching. So first thing is the mechanic of the canter. So let me pick up the canter. So in the canter, the horse has a left lead and a right lead. We're gonna start off on right lead canter. In right lead canter, the right hind leg and the right front leg are leading. And when you're tracking right, when you're circling right, you wanna be on right lead canter. So you can see here, as I'm cantering, how his right front foot and his right hind foot reach more forward than the left side. Now the other thing that you need to know about the canter is the rhythm of the canter. The canter is a 3-beat gait. So the first beat is the outside hind leg. The second beat is the inside hind leg and the outside front leg. And the third beat is the inside front leg. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And there's also a suspension phase where all 4 feet are off of the ground. Now when you're sitting the canter, you want to feel all 3 of those beats. And there's a little bit of a swishing motion in your seat. So your seat kind of goes from back to front in the saddle. Your hips are going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Your hips are swinging through your hands. So I kind of think of in the canter dividing your body into 3 parts. So there's your legs, like from your knee down. Then there's your seat, which is like from your above your knee to below your rib cage. And then there's your shoulders. So in the canter, your hips are doing the motion. Your legs and your shoulders are still, but your hips are doing the motion. So your hips are swinging, 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 swinging. Now, you should kind of feel when you're cantering your belly move a little. So if I had a belt on, like right here is moving. It's a little bit flexing and going forward, flexing and going forward right in my middle belly button area. What I see a lot of people do is they try to sit still and then they go like this, so they're bouncing. Sorry, Mercurio. So if you're not moving your middle, you're gonna bounce like this. Bounce, 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 bounce. And your horse is not going to like that. Boy. So let me show you now. We are on the left lead canter. And you see how now his left front and his left hind leg are the ones taking a bigger stride. And as far as what my body's doing, again, my middle is moving with him. I'm thinking of that nice alignment of my ear, shoulder, hip, and heel. Now, sometimes I see a lot of people in the canter that they lean too far forward like this. So their shoulders are in front of their hip now. And that's more like a 2-point, like a jumper style. Or they'll be too far back like this, sitting on the back part of their butt. And again, that makes it hard when you're leaning back like this. It makes it hard to keep your leg on. It makes it hard to properly follow the motion of your horse. So just make sure, keep that nice up and down alignment, and that's gonna help you to better follow the motion of the canter with your horse. So I hope you like these tips, and let me know if they help your canter. Good boy, Mercurio. Good boy.